This is the Fort Builders, the podcast where we explore the moments, memories, and meaning that made someone who they are, and discover what we might build in our own lives because of it. I'm your host, Lance Johnson. Welcome to the Fort. Let's begin. Welcome to Fort Builders. I am excited about today's guest, and I'll introduce him in a minute. But again, for those of you that are first time listening to this podcast, it's really it's pretty simple. How do we become who we are? And so this podcast is hopefully to share a story and to kind of get an understanding of how somebody becomes who they are. And then hopefully you as a listener spends the time to reflect in your own life and think of, how did you get to where you're at now and maybe where you're going? So maybe you'll find some inspiration in Chad's story. But before we get too far, I'd like to introduce my guest today, Chad Dick, who is the CEO and president of Fully Promoted. They are a full-service marketing, embroidery, screen printing, and promotional products here in Lawrence, Kansas. And I met Chad, probably a couple months ago through a chamber event. And then we had coffee at Uplift Coffee, which is a great place here in town. They do such a great job, and got to spend a little bit of time with Chad, and didn't get to really dive into a whole lot of story. But what's intriguing to me as somebody that's owned a business in the past, and I was a small business owner, I have an affinity toward those that are doing that, and I just would love to hear more, Chad, about your story, what you've got going on, how did you get here? Because I think it's inspiring to talk to business owners, and especially the small business owners, when you are don't always have all of the resources and you got to wear a lot of hats. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, well, Lance, appreciate you having me on. You're doing a really good job with this podcast. Been able to watch a couple of them now, and I'm excited to be on and share a little time with you. So
appreciate that.
Yeah, it's being a small business owner, it's got its ups and downs, right? You've been through it, and but it's been a blessing. I opened Fully Promoted here in Lawrence a couple of years ago, and would not change a minute of it. We've done what I feel is a really good job getting things started, but obviously you have to sustain the business for a long time. But we're rocking and rolling over here, and really happy with what we're doing. Got a great team here, and really excited for the future.
Yeah, that's what, when we met, that's, you talked about your team and excitement around that. And I know, and we'll probably get into it, but, your team started as probably one, and that was you. And then, and everything that goes with that, and then bringing a team on. And then so I really appreciate you taking the time to be here. Again, as a small business owner, anybody, your time is valuable. Mm-hmm. So getting that time together here, thank you. Another thing that stuck out when we met was you had mentioned you don't just take orders, right? Obviously somebody can call you, print some hats or do this, but what stood out to me was your want to, as far as being hey, let's really hear about what you're trying to accomplish and provide input into what's the best way maybe to promote that business. Find the right product, find the right look. And I thought that, to me, that stood out.
Yeah, it's something that we really based our business on. And I think a lot of that's, really from a lot of the great leaders that I've had over my career in really learning how to be successful. I've learned from a lot of great people, and that's something that's really stuck with me over the years. When we've been able to be really successful, it's about really helping our clients and helping them grow their business. And so that's really our mantra here, is how can we help our clients grow? And if we do that, we're going to be able to grow our business. I know it sounds a little bit cliche, but
Sure.
it's really the truth. And how we do everything here every day is to help our clients. And so, our industry as a whole, promotional products, especially not so much on the apparel side, but on the promotional products, people think of stuff that's going to go in your junk drawer, and going to home show and just picking up everything you can, and some of it's junk and all that kind of stuff. And that's something we really try to pride ourselves on is, we work a lot with recycled materials too, and vendors that do that, but really sitting down with the client and understanding what they're all about, who they are targeting, how they want to grow their business, and finding products that help tell their brand story and aligned with who they are in their industry. And so it's much more than, selling someone a pen or, a stress reliever or cup, whatever it may be. We really want to find something that's going to help them grow their business and really align with, what they have going on in their company.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that rather than get something, just put it in the drawer or hopefully not the trash, but being very intentional on, yeah, how does this fit? How does this fit the brand? And then what's the end user going to do with it, and how are they going to use it? And yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. Anything, I just thought, what's the most unique? Can you promote, I guess, embroidery or screen printing or somebody's embellishment, whatever you call it, on about anything? I mean, is there?
Yeah, it's been wild. Just some of the requests we've had come in, and some things you're like, yeah, we could get that, but maybe that's not something we want to say that we've done too, right? There's just
Sure.
some strange products out there. But yeah, really anything you can put a logo on from, we're not, we can do as simple things as, business cards and all that. That's really not what our focus is, but anything that you would put a logo on, from a business card all the way up to a corporate gift. We've worked on some larger projects. They're targeting CEOs and looking for, some higher end lavish things to really get their attention. We can really put your logo on about anything. And if it's something that we don't do well, we're going to tell you, hey, we have clients all the time say, hey, you done a really good job with this for us. Like, do you guys do signage and these types of things? And sure, there's some things we have suppliers that could do that, but that's not our forte. So we'll tell them, hey, call Matt over at Fast Signs or some of those other local businesses. That's their forte of what they really do. So we're going to lead them in the right direction.
Yeah.
Well, we really have the ability to put someone's logo on about anything you could think of.
Wow. So you said did you open the doors about 2 years ago? Is that what you said?
February of 2024.
February 2024. Okay. So yeah, just a little over 2 years. What were you doing before? I mean, were you doing similar adjacent kind of industry, or is this brand new?
Adjacent industry. So, my career, once I got out of college, really I've kind of worked in two industries for the most part. One is in sports apparel. I worked a lot in that, and then also in the trade show industry. And then I worked for another company that was a little bit outside of that. That was part of private equity, but I learned a lot of my leadership skills from there. Built a lot who I am. But for the most part, in those two industries, trade shows and custom apparel. So whenever I came, I decided to kind of go out on my own and start my new business. I had come across Fully Promoted, which is a franchise group, and had never heard of them, even though we have a couple of them just 30 minutes down the road in the Casey metro area. And it really just made a lot of sense. If I'm going to start my own business, really use my strengths and experience and just tap into the power they have as a franchise, as a global brand, and really get to work right away. So
Right. Yeah, I think, and I remember you mentioning that a little bit, some instant structure or say organization by going the franchise route. But I'm not going to let you off. And when you say just started a business, and I want to unpack that a little bit, because had you started a business or owned a business before this?
I had not. Never
You
had.
had not. Okay.
Yeah, it's I think it really goes back for me. I've wanted to own a business since I was a little kid, and I have no idea why.
Okay.
But I can remember growing up in the early '80s. We grew up with a family that I lived in a small town in northeast Oklahoma. There's about 700 people in it. Our school only went to ninth grade. There was not even a high school there whenever I was growing up. And so, but my family, while we had what we needed to get by, we never had a lot of money and resources and all those types of things. But I was always into sports as a little kid, and I was a pretty good athlete, was able to be successful growing up. And I can remember my dreams kind of got shattered when I was probably 9 or 10 years old. I had told my parents, I was like, hey, I want to open a sporting goods store when I get old. That's what I want to do when I grow up. And, with my last name being Dick, I was like, everyone's always, as being a kid and that kind of name, you get teased and all that kind of stuff. I'm just going to lean into it. I like my name. Like, I want to come up with a business. I'll call it Dick Sporting Goods. Well, lo and behold, when you get about 10, you're like, oh yeah, there's this company
Right.
that,
Yeah.
just exploded in the early 90s. But that was kind of always in my just desires as I was growing up. I thought I wanted to own my own business. My grandpa owned a Phillips 66 service station. I saw kind of how he did things and to go there. And that's probably a lot where maybe some of that came from.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, so it kind of goes way back.
Did you said Grandpa owned a Phillips 66, so a filling station. Did you spend time there?
We did. In the summer, I can remember spending time there, and he'd be out in the shop working on cars. And I still couldn't fix cars to this day.
Right.
Didn't
Sure.
really learn a lot about that, but I learned a lot about just the hard work and the work ethic of what he did. He was there early and late every day. And
Yeah. Well, I was talking with my brothers past weekend, and one of my middle brothers is just extremely handy with vehicles and things. But even if you grew up knowing how to work on vehicles, I think it's changed so much now. It's about hooking them up to a computer. The computer will tell you what to do and not to do, where the error code's at. And so then you got to learn how to run the computer, and it's so different. But okay, so going to so what did you do? Did you get to do any jobs at the filling station? Were you sweeping the floor, filling gas?
yeah, yeah. Back then, yeah, we used still even fill people's gas tanks from time to time. They still had that back when we were growing up, and so yeah, I would go there when I was younger a little bit. But then even being in a small town. In a more of a farming community. I mean, we were doing all kinds of odd jobs. I mean, our parents obviously had us doing chores, but we were mowing yards, or I'd go down with buddies and we'd work at the stockyards and get cattle through for the show and all that kind of stuff. Out hauling hay, doing all those kinds of things. I mean, so just a lot of just different opportunities for us to work and build that work ethic as we were. So
you said your grandpa, what'd your dad do?
He was in sales. He worked for my grandpa for quite a while, but then he was in sales from the time I was probably, I just want to say like 12 on up, working in either boat sales, RV sales, those types of things, more recreational type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I always told myself, once he made that switch and I saw that, I'm like, I'm never going into sales. I didn't want all the ups and downs, all that 100% commission stuff. Things are good in the summer, but he's never home. But then in the winter, there's nothing going on. And so like, it was just a lot. I was like, I don't want to do that.
Uh-huh.
It's funny how things work out. That's pretty much what I've done a lot of my career.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, you said, I don't want to do that, but then you ended up doing a lot of that. So you got out of Oklahoma. So after ninth grade, what'd you do? Did you go straight to college?
Yeah, we were right on the Oklahoma-Kansas border, and so we ended up Coffeyville is where I went to high school, and so went from. Granted, we were always right there, so we had a place to go to town or whatever. It wasn't like we had to drive an hour to get to a grocery store or anything like that. But went to high school there. Was lucky enough to really have some good teachers and really good coaches that was able to get me ready for college, and was lucky enough to land a basketball scholarship to a small NAIA school. What I thought I wanted to do was go play basketball. So went out there to Southwestern, out to south of Wichita. Played there for a year, but quickly just realized, well, I love basketball. I really wasn't finding my passion there. It was like almost extended high school, the size of the school and those types of things. So I really kind of evaluated after that first year, and I got hurt, broke my leg. So that had a lot to do with it as well. all right, what do I want to do? I was for schooling, I was going to be a teacher. That was my plan. I was like, hey, let's teach and coach and do those kinds of things. But as I started to evaluate, well, where do we go next? I grew up in Oklahoma, so I was always thought I would get, if I was going to go to a big school, let's go to the University of Oklahoma. So I actually went down there, got enrolled, was going to go there, but I had a lot of friends from Coffeyville that went to KU, and I really didn't like KU growing up. I was an Oklahoma fan.
Sure. Yeah, understandable.
But just as we got closer and closer, I just, for some reason, flipped a switch and said, you know what, I'm going to go to KU. And I think it really came down to, obviously, having some of those friends, but just as I was looking at the majors and which direction I was going to go, I ran across the major called sports management. And at Oklahoma, it was a graduate level program. And at KU, it was an undergrad program. And so that was kind of probably the main reason I made that switch, was to come up here and get into that sports management program, see if I could continue to work in sports with the passion I had. And, maybe it's a sports agent or working in athletics or for a sports team, one of those types of things. That was kind of what led me to Lawrence. And we've been in this area ever since. So
never left. Okay.
Yeah.
Never. Yeah. Okay. That's a similar story of mine. Came here to KU and never left. Yeah. I didn't realize that. So you've been here since you were in school.
Yeah. We've been here for 27 years now. Yes. So since I moved here, so we live in Baldwin, just south of here.
Sure.
But yeah, wife's always worked here, and we've pretty much go to church in this community for the last couple of decades. So we've been a part of Lawrence for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's see, sports management, you got your degree. You were originally thinking teacher, kind of let that go, went sports management, you get out. Yeah. And you had said you kind of had some entrepreneurial or want to own your own business feel. Was that with you back then when you were, even coming out even when you were doing sports management or close to in school, or call it younger, were those thoughts? Did you ever do anything entrepreneurial as a kid, or you just working hard?
Just working hard. I mean, I had part-time jobs working, umpiring youth sports and working at the grocery store, working for the Parks and Rec. When I was in college here, I worked for the Parks and Rec and helped them run the after-school programs, along with the Boys and Girls Club and those types of things. So it wasn't so much, it was more about the leadership and the coaching. I think at that point, just kind of, I wanted to do some more of that, but wanted to stay in the sports. But the entrepreneurship thing was still always, I guess that's kind of what I ended up getting into with sales. I did my internship at the National Association of Basketball Coaches, which are based in Kansas City. And that was an incredible experience, spending the semester there with them. And they put on their coaches convention at the Final Four. And so got to spend 10 days in New Orleans, working the Final Four and getting to, spend time with some big name coaches. And I can remember a couple of things from that event specifically. At the time, Tubby Smith was at Kentucky, and we were having a golf tournament, and he was really being wooed to get to the NBA. And we had to leave the middle of the golf tournament. He was like on the 10th hole or something like that. He's like, I need you to run me to the airport. So I have to run him to the airport. He's on the phone with his agent, and I'm like, I'm hearing stuff I shouldn't be hearing.
Yeah.
Wow. It was really cool. And then the next day, I had the pleasure of Coach Wooden was still here with us at that point, and having the honor of taking him from the hotel to the game and sitting by him at the game stuff. So just some really cool experiences that you really don't appreciate. I mean, it's cool at the time, but you really don't appreciate it until you think about it. Things like that today. So,
and you're like, I wish I would have said this, or I wish I would have asked him.
Asking some questions, just kind of just sitting there enjoying the game. So awestruck of being at the Final Four of the game, but looking back, man, sitting next to him, that was pretty cool.
What about what year was that? Or if you can think, I remember Tubby Smith at Kentucky. Yeah.
Yeah. It was 2003. So it was the
Okay.
year that
KU.
Syracuse won. KU was in the Final Four. That was the
Yep.
Carmelo year and all of that. So
I remember that. Collison goes 3 for 11 from the line, I think. And was it Lee? Uh, got his
Michael Lee, I
three
got
pointer
one.
block. Michael Lee got his 3-pointer blocked in the corner, something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was tough.
Yeah.
Well, so I want to sit in the moment for a minute with Wooden or Tubby Smith. So you're there. Did you get to talk to him?
Yeah. Yeah. We talked I got to meet tons of coaches and, I mean, it was just really cool. I just didn't really, we were there working the convention. We're working, I mean, goodness, from 5 a.m. to 1 o'clock in the
Yeah.
morning. I mean, just you're working and getting them, making sure they're getting the meetings they need to and doing all those cool things. But, those are really just two of the main things that still, 20 some years later that stick out in my
That
mind.
stick out. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was an invaluable experience, being able to do that and just learn how to put on events and meet some really, learn how to interact with some of those people you would be just scared to even go and talk to. So I think that helped me in more ways than I ever could have realized, just being a part of it. So
Yeah, and isn't it? And I'm not sitting here thinking that you felt pressure or even felt the moment, but I don't know how old you were then, but what I'm hearing, even as a kid growing up in Oklahoma and doing the diverse jobs, being relied upon to do whatever you were doing at those different jobs, having that responsibility, it puts you in situations that you're being relied upon, that and you're learning life lessons that you don't know. You don't know that until someday, and somehow it just kind of shows up, right?
sure.
And then when you're they're around those coaches and that kind of leadership, it's not like overt or anything's being said. It's just kind of rubbing off on you.
Mhm.
You're in the room, you're observing it, and you're being relied on to, hey, go do this, do that. And yeah, you've had some pretty cool, well, the work ethic puts you in sometimes an uncomfortable place.
Mhm.
You mentioned long hours at those tournaments, right? It's just character building, and to where ultimately it gets you to where someday when you're owning a business, I mean, you got to do all that stuff, but somewhere
Sure.
you had to learn it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's,
Wow.
yeah, it was
It,
very fortunate in those years just to some of those experiences got to be a part of. So
um, so when did you get into sales then and do the thing you didn't want to do? Or what got you into that?
right. So here's kind of the funny thing about all of this, right? Is I'm in college. I'm going into my summer before my senior year. I'm working at the Parks and Rec, and I'm working their summer camp. And I run across this girl that I meet, and tell myself I'm going to marry this girl, right? And
It's
I,
funny. I got a pod. It just seems like there's I'm doing these podcasts or talking to people. There's always a common thread. And then I met this girl.
yeah,
we're all going, we're all going down a path.
yeah.
And then I met this girl.
Yeah,
Anyway, go
and
ahead.
it's so true though. But it's and we're it takes a little while, but it happened really fast, right? 8 months from that point, that summer, that next spring, while I'm in this internship, we get
Yeah.
engaged, right?
Uh-huh.
We're about to graduate, and I have an opportunity from that internship um, to go to New York and work for a big event company that puts on tournaments and doing like that kind of stuff. I was going to have to move to New York City and work on Wall Street and do all of this, right? Thought it was a lot of money, but then you're looking, okay, well, I got to move to New York. So like that's making like,
So I'm sorry, my head. So that's the path. That's what was in front of you. Okay. Okay.
so I had to make a decision because my wife, being from Kansas, she's like, well, hey, like I know it's a great opportunity, but that's really not where, I want to spend my life, moving to New York City. And I was like, well, I don't really either, but it's just a great opportunity. I'd let, if we go there for 18 months, a couple of years and find something we can move back, but she really wasn't up to it. So I had to make a decision, at that point. And so, I made the right one. I chose her and, but I had, at that point, I had to decide what was I going to do. Right. And so
Right.
I'm graduating
Yeah.
college and, at that time, there wasn't a lot of, around here, sports wise, there's the Royals, the Chiefs, and maybe something with KU. There wasn't a lot of jobs open. And so I'm like, all right, well, I got to go get a job. So I applied to a couple places, and one that I get to an interview in, and it's a sales position. And I'm like, I really don't want to do this, but I go and I have this interview, and it's with this company that sells Xerox machines and copy, all that kind of stuff. And I have a really good interview with the CEO. He's like, yeah, you're going to be a great addition to our team. You're just what we need. He's like, there's one step left you have to do, and you have to take this. We just have people take this as kind of just a second check, a personality test.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, it won't be no big deal. Well, I failed that thing with flying colors, right?
You got the wrong personality. Yeah.
And he, he called me. Actually, he didn't call me. I had to follow up with him a couple times, and I finally caught him on the phone. And he's like, "Yeah," he's like, you would be a great fit for our culture. You fit right in. He's like, just from what we look at from these tests, they really tell us if people are going to be good at sales or not. And he's like, I really think, maybe if you found an operations type job or something, like you're a great culture guy, but you don't have that, you really go get them type personality that we would see in that test. And I was like, okay. So he fueled my fire for the rest of my career.
Oh,
he told me I couldn't do it.
I'm going to prove him wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, I've been in sales every job of my career since that point. And it's but I'm not your traditional salesperson. I would still probably fail a lot of those tests, right? And so
right.
But that's how I got into sales. I went to the next interview and ended up in a tech sales job for like 6 months, and then I ended up back in the sports industry as a sales for a company in Kansas City, and I've kind of been in that or in the trade show industry ever since.
That's hilarious. That's funny. Fueled me for the rest of my life. I can relate a little bit. I was kind of told not to go into engineering. They looked at my ACT scores, I think, at a visit to KU, and I think one of the counselors just said, "Well, you're right on the line for where you need to be," and just said, "We recommend you not do that." Well, that, like you just said, those are like fighting words. Oh no, I'm going to do this. They were about half right. I'm not sure how good of an engineer I am, but anyway, that's what I've done for the past 30 some years. So yeah, that's funny though.
Well, there's some truth to that test too. I'm not gonna say it's not right. Like right now, I have all my sales career, I'm not one to just go walk in a place and strike up a conversation with someone,
right?
Or knock on a door like Fibs, a cold call, knocking on doors. I'd be terrible at that. And so I may not have been the right person position he had, but it just challenged me to I want to prove this guy wrong. I can do this. And so it's stuck with me ever since. It's the strangest thing, but
it's in the back of your head. Yeah. That's awesome. No, I agree totally what you just said, that and sales is such a broad term, broad word, that there's different types. There's soft selling, there's hard selling, it just really depends. Heck, believing in something and telling people about it can be a form of selling, but it can be all you're doing is just like you said, you've got a business, you're proud of it, you're proud of what you do, you like the team that you're with, the people that you work with, you want to support them. And if you go out and tell people about it, some would say that's selling, and you'd probably say, no, I'm just telling people about what we do and what we've got, and you're just proud of it. But yeah, no, I hear you. So, get me to where you make a decision to want to jump off the cliff and say, I'm going for it.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause I don't know if all the listeners have ever thought of owning a business or doing that. Some may not, and I get that. Some may say, gosh, I've thought about it, but it scares me to death. I wouldn't even know where to begin or what that looks like. Yeah, get me there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been in the back of my head for quite a while, and I think I've worked for a lot of different companies over the 25 years I was working before I started this. I worked for small companies. I worked for large companies, publicly traded companies. Worked for private equity. So I've seen had a lot of different managers and leaders, and so had a lot of just different experiences, good, bad, and different along the way.
Yeah.
But I remember once we first had our kids and they're 4 or 5 years old and getting to that age when you're really trying to find money and pay for all this daycare and all that kind of stuff. I can specifically remember telling my wife, it's like, Mickey, I wish I just would have went out and started my own business from the beginning. There's so many people that if they do it the right way, you can be successful. And then I was kind of at a point, well, financially, it's really hard to just do it at that point. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
So I really couldn't make that, or didn't feel like I could make that jump. Probably right now, I wish I would have done this 15, 20 years ago.
Right.
But that's part of the learning process, and what I matured and also learned from a lot of people is what I think is helping us be successful. I wouldn't have had those tools or those experiences to do as well as we've done without it. So I'm grateful for that. But, I think go ahead if you were.
No. All I was going to say, it's easy to look back and sometimes put that into kind of a binary choice and discount all the other things that have happened in your favor, thinking that, anyway, no, that's when you look back, whether it's regret or just beating yourself up. It's really it's unfair ultimately, because who would have said life would have played out the way it did anyway? So anyway,
Right.
who knows how it would have played out, right? It
Right.
is what it is, and there's timing to it, but yeah.
And a couple of the, just as I think back, and even back to playing sports in school, some of the things that you don't appreciate at the time is when things are really hard, is when you learn the most and what really sticks with you. So like our high school basketball coach, he was just brutal. He was brutal on us. He was a winner, but he was so hard on us. But I still use so much of what I learned from him today, not how I treat people and how he necessarily, but
Right.
Punctuality, a lot of those things you just learn and really becomes a part of who you are. And then the first real sales manager I had that really challenged me wasn't just, hey, I'm your boss. Like he would call me on a Friday afternoon and pretend he's someone else, he just tested me all the time. I'm like, man, why is this guy doing it? But it's because he cared about me. He wanted me to be really good. And I'm still connected to him, even though he lives in California, and if he comes to Kansas City, we get together for coffee, whatever it may be. But two of the jobs that really kind of probably pushed me over the top into finally doing this were, I worked for Ascend Learning in Kansas City, and they're owned by private equity. It was more in the IT, kind of when I ventured out of the two industries that I'd been in.
Okay.
But one of my clients introduced me to his brother, and that's how I ended up getting there. And I worked we worked in the insurance and financial services area. And I started out as a sales rep and was promoted up a couple different times to eventually overseeing the entire sales team. And we acquired a company and integrating teams together. I learned so much from that, but it was not easy. It was a really hard job. Being part of private equity and just all of that's involved in that. And it, but being able to get into leadership and really learn from some really good people, some really strong leaders and really smart people that I learned a lot from there, I think really helped me in this position now. But it was really stressful. It was hard on my wife. I was traveling all the time, all over the country, managing sales reps in Arizona, here, remote. It was a lot. And so it wore me down. I got to a point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. It was just really hard. But it really helped build me to what I am. And so when I finally decided to leave there, I got back into the sports industry. I worked for Gear for Sports on Lemexa.
Okay. Yeah.
they've been around for a long time. They were a privately owned company, but Haynes bought them several years ago, and uh, went there to oversee a sales team, a sales manager. They had a contract with Under Armour to sell anything with a college logo on it for a Under Armour sponsored school. We were responsible for. So I started out there, and then was promoted a couple different times there into overseeing some other brands and just some of the success that I'd had. They believed in a lot, kind of what we were doing and what I was doing, but Haynes as a whole was not doing well. Our division, our company, Gear for Sports, were extremely profitable. But Haynes, with the retail business with Walmart and Target and all of those, they were not doing well. And so they had made a decision that they were going to sell our division of the company and publicly just told us, hey, you guys are profitable. We need to reevaluate the core of our business. Even though we're a few $100 million, like we weren't nothing in dropping a buck of a $7 billion company. So, and that's when I knew it. We were starting to hear, hey, it's private equity is getting involved. And and there's a lot of good with private equity. Like I said, I learned a lot of good stuff from it. But as I was talking to Mickey, she's like, you've talked about doing this business thing again. Do you really want to go back into private equity, or are you just going to do it? And so when I said I made the right decision way back when,
Right there. Yep.
I mean, so she really gave me the confidence and pushed me across the finish line. So we went from, it was probably like July, August of 23. I just said, all right, she's like, let's go do it. Like, you can do it. She's like, I would just encourage you, maybe look into a franchise. You obviously can sell, you can lead people. You've been really good at doing that, but you don't have all that structure. You never run a business. You don't have a lot of that structure behind you. So look into franchises first, see if there's something that makes sense. So went down that path and interviewed several companies. And like I mentioned earlier, I'd never heard of Fully Promoted. And I came across them like, oh my gosh, like it's what I'd done my whole career. And so by the end of December that year, I had already signed a contract. We're going to open a business, put in my 30 days notice. And
wow,
come February of that year, we're open for business, and I'm flying solo. Just let's go.
Wow. Yeah. Go from income steady to jump. Yeah. And, got to recognize, and you said it, your wife, Mickey, it wasn't just you making the decision, right?
Yep.
She's there with you. I mean, this is, you're in this together, and it does sound like she understood what you're probably up against, and you felt that's huge to feel her support and know she's on board. Might be a few months of ramen and mac and cheese, and it's gonna, wow.
Yeah. She's been a huge catalyst for giving me the strength and the confidence to just go do it and know that things are going to be all right, even though that, it's still a struggle, right? I mean, owning a business.
Oh yeah.
But
it doesn't end after the jump. That just opens up a whole nother set of things, right? Yeah. Well, I want to rewind for a minute. If you, Dan, you mentioned your coach, basketball coach, and you said he was tough. And you said punctuality was one thing. Mm-hmm. Can you remember some other things that either lessons or moments with that coach that
I think the one thing that, and a lot of people get this in different ways, but he was he pushed you to a level you didn't think you could go. And so whenever I think about any time, like, man, I don't know that I can do this, I think about Coach Wall. And so he would, I was never the greatest athlete. I could shoot it better than anyone in the gym, but I couldn't run fast. I couldn't jump high, all that kind of stuff. But he would get the most out of me so I could be on the floor as much as I could possibly be. So, and believed in me, and did just our whole team. He would push us to a limit we didn't think. I mean, we shouldn't have been competing with a lot of the teams we were playing, and we're we're beating teams that we have no business doing that and getting to state tournaments and things like that. And so it just the belief and just knowing that just to push yourself further than you think you can go. You got a lot further to go. It's kind of like that movie on Remember the Titans, where they blindfold the guy. I mean, that's the type of stuff that he kind of brought out of us. That you can just, if your mind can hold you back so much,
Yes.
you just let go. You can go much further than you ever realize.
That's awesome. And that's really cool that, you can be, some coaching styles are, well, there's some coaches out there that are just hard and let's call it mean, and that's not clearly he wasn't doing it because he's mean. He was doing it for you guys to grow. I mean, he's making you uncomfortable. So you grew from that. And wow. Did you, looking back on your grandpa, you're working hard in his shop. Was he similar from just work? You said work ethic. Any lessons learned from him at the shop? Any moments you can remember? And the reason I share that, I had a great grandpa that had an appliance store downtown Goodland, Kansas, and we used to go in, and I just remember he had a glass. This back when you could smoke anywhere, and he always smoked a cigar, and there was always one kind of lit, and it was just sitting there on his ashtray, and and he might have had one in his hand, but he also had a little candy dish, and there were these little we called them pinkies, but a little pink, sugary discs. I don't know, kind of a chalky, kind of like those little candy hearts that you get at Valentine's Day. And we'd always run in and want to go to see Great Poppy was his name. And we'd always want to go see Poppy and get a pinky. But we would spend a lot of time at that store. They sold appliances, so a lot of messing with cardboard boxes and just doing stuff. So anyway, when you mentioned Grandpa and him having a business, and to me, took it. So I appreciate you sharing that. It took me back to kind of remembering as a kid, just kind of being around that and seeing Grandpa or my great grandpa just interact, back to soaking it up. You don't even know what you're seeing until now I look back. Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, he definitely had a good work ethic. I can remember in some of this maybe what held me from, doing this earlier too, but I was probably 5, 6 years old, 7, something like that. His station got robbed, like lost everything. I just completely wiped out, and they rebounded and we did it again. But, just like all of a sudden everything is gone.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's, but seeing him just persevere and just get back after it. And I'm sure, from what I remember, it's like nothing changed. He just went right back at it. And I'm sure he went through a lot.
Right.
Yeah. I think it's just everything, they lived in pretty much the same house their whole life. They, but they tried to do everything they could. They would go to as much of our stuff, have us over, go over, come have dinner, just whatever it was. They were always there for us. So it was always Grandma and Grandpa's house. So, good memories.
That's awesome. Yeah. How many kiddos you got? So I'm thinking you're running a business now and owning a business. You took that leap, obviously your wife, and then, it's always easier if it's just you, right? And then you've got your wife. Yeah. How many kids you got?
I've got 2 boys. I've got, both of them are juniors, one in high school, one in college.
And,
okay. We always get teased a little bit. Mickey and I met at KU, went to school here, and our oldest left and went to K-State. So we failed as parents. But, looking back, I didn't go where I was supposed to go either. So I think apple doesn't fall far from the tree. He got out, and it's been really good for him. But he's a finance guy. He's more of the quiet one. Our youngest, he's a junior. He is an entrepreneur like crazy. I mean, it's
really,
he's going to places and buying, he's going to the thrift stores and stuff and then turn around and flipping and selling stuff. He works 2 or 3 jobs, plays on traveling soccer team. I mean, he is just a go, go, go. And so I don't know that he'll ever want to take over the business, but man, if he wanted to, that would be pretty cool just to know it'd be in good hands and someone that's got that work ethic. I mean, he's
Yeah,
something. So, but both of
right.
them, they've been very successful, always good grades, done well in athletics and clubs and doing different things. So, very, very
Well, you
proud.
never know, that finance guy might still get into sales.
Yeah.
He might.
Well, he came back and worked with me last summer, so he got to see a little firsthand at kind of how things work and
Yeah,
from the get go. So yeah, that was a cool experience too.
that's awesome. Yeah. Uh, yeah. Anything? Yeah. Kind of looking ahead. Any big things so to use the metaphor of the fort, I guess. What's your fort you're building? Not that building fully promoted and that business and being involved in the community isn't enough. I'm not implying there should be something else. But just, anything looking ahead. What's it look
No,
like
it's
for you?
yeah, we opened up here 2 years ago. We've already moved to a larger location
Okay.
out on the west side of town. We've got pretty much four full-time employees now. Got some contract help. Got a KU student here working with us, so we're growing. I thought we moved into a big enough space. I'm already starting to
You're
second
already,
guess myself
wow.
here. But
Yeah.
very thankful for that. But I think the one thing that's coming into this, like, hey, we want to grow this business and be one of the top fully promoteds in the country and see what we can do. Well, now, kind of thinking back to Coach Wall, like, all right, my goals aren't necessarily big enough. Like we're getting there, right? We've been very lucky. So really trying, my team, we were talking about that the other day, like we've had just a terrific start to our year. And like they were saying, well, I don't know if our goals are big enough. And so like we've even put new stretch goals out there, but and they were asking me like, well, what's your long-term goals now? And I've really had to reevaluate that. I think we can make this business here a lot bigger than I thought, but I think we can expand in whether it's, open another location somewhere like Wichita, or maybe we look to acquire an adjacent business in marketing and things like that are helping clients with
Yeah.
or their brand awareness from a marketing standpoint, designing logos and a lot of that kind of stuff. So there's definitely some things down the road I'm starting to think about that I think we can expand on this, and whether it's growth outside of this area or just different kind of adjacent business that we can kind of tie in together. I'm really starting to think about some of those things.
Well, and that doesn't surprise me. I mean, going back to kind of helping relationship, right? If you find a business or somebody you're working with and you want to grow with them, I think knowing you, it's probably natural that, hey, how can we help you? If it's not just the embroidery printing and you're needing some marketing help or something, like you said, how can we help you more? Which totally fits. Are you seeing AI? I get asked all the time, what are you doing? How does that affect your business? Has it affected you, or do you see it affecting you?
It affects us quite a bit. I mean, I think we're still trying to take advantage of it a little bit more than we are, but also being smart about it. There's a lot of companies out there that, as a business owner, I'm getting phone calls every day. Someone's trying to sell me something now too, right? So, but I think one of the things that we will not do, I looked into it a little bit in the beginning, as when I'm starting out by myself, I'm like, all right, how do we continue to grow and get more meetings and these types of things when just a couple of us, when I didn't feel like I go out and hire people right away. So you look into some of those things like, hey, can they help us prospect and do some of that? But
Yeah,
what we will not do, and I don't think I'll ever change my mind on this, I don't want to fall behind either, but we will not let it do our sales and our interaction with our clients
yeah,
from the front end, because we still want to what we are about is building that relationship and helping our clients really understand their business, and that'll still be us. But we are going to use it more from some administrative things. How can we help get better and faster to better serve our clients? We use it for some of our ideation and different things. Some of the things that we're writing and putting together, we use it a lot. And my sales, we have a new sales guy that started a few months ago. He's using it a lot to help him build out some of his prospect list and building
Yeah.
out Excel spreadsheets with tracking and doing some different things. So he's using it for him to be more efficient with his time. So we're definitely using it. We still got a lot to learn with what's out there. So
Yeah. I was talking with somebody earlier today, and well, you mentioned it a few minutes ago. You kind of said it, but I don't think it's going to replace the human to human contact, relationship building, the communication. In fact, we were talking that we think it's just going to be more important, the ability to be able to communicate with people. And I don't see AI. It can help you, but I don't think it can replace the value you get, person to person communication. So, yeah, I'm totally with you that yeah, to me, that'd be a non-negotiable as well. Yeah. Well, I didn't realize you had grown that much, and that's awesome.
yeah,
From just a couple years. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
That's really neat.
it's been fun. Now it's just trying to really just trying to meet some additional people too that have gone through some of this so I can learn and ask some questions too, because we're growing at a clip now. I'm like, okay, how do I sustain this? How do I make sure I keep my staff happy and not overworked, but also be smart about it from a financial perspective, that I can't go out and hire, tons of people. And so there's a lot to learn, and still trying to figure it out.
That's why they call them growing pains.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't know that a business can ever. I've always heard it, and I believe it, that you're either growing or you're dying. I mean, you just can't stay the same. I mean, you think you've got it right, and you want to bottle it and just say, let's kind of keep this, but you constantly have got to be innovating, looking ahead. I was just thinking about this. Is there something you enjoy the most that stands out, that you like the most as far as having your business and what you do in your role? I don't really know how to ask that other than,
Yeah.
here's what I like. Here's my
Yeah.
favorite thing about owning my own business or doing this.
Yeah. I think for me, like I mentioned, I worked a lot of different places, and a lot of places give you the autonomy to do your job the way, they hire you to bring in smart people and do their job. But there's a lot of things you don't always agree with how things are done and how it's done. And so I really like to be able to, decide how we're going to do things and have that autonomy to really feel like we're going to do things the right way, and people are going to recognize that. And so there's definitely some things that I do that, from a bottom line perspective, we wouldn't have done that other places. But I feel like it's the right thing to do for the customer, or maybe our salesperson or administrative team, whatever, didn't handle something correctly. We missed putting something on a quote. Yeah, sometimes you have to go back to a client and say, hey, we missed it. This is a big one. But there's other
Yeah.
times we're like, hey, we're not going to charge you for this. Just letting you know. So if you do order this again, this is, and so there's just a lot of those things that we're going to do right from the get go. And I think clients appreciate that. So I think that's the biggest thing for me. And just letting them know we're not here to just take their money. We really want to see them succeed. And so when we see, companies at events like winning awards and doing things because they're growing their business, and to know that maybe we're just, the apparel people that they have, right? But knowing that a lot of times those things can help their employees be happy. And so to have the success, I mean, that helps. We get a real kick out of that. I mean, my team will all get a text from someone out, they're out at dinner or whatever. Like, look, here's the shirts that we made for so-and-so company. Like, our team thrives on that too. They really enjoy it. And so I think that's the coolest thing about this, just knowing that we have a little piece of some of those companies' success. So
that's awesome. Yeah. You can see there's pride in seeing the success in others and knowing that you had a piece of being able to help them with that. That's so cool. I was sitting there thinking, your fingerprints, you as the owner and the leader, your fingerprints are all over that business, the culture, good or bad. They're there, and you don't have anybody you can't go to your boss, man. I mean, if you want to complain about something, you just need to go look in the mirror, right?
Yep.
And it can be lonely, but at times very gratifying. And I'm extremely happy for you. I think it's cool you made the leap. You and your wife made the leap, and that you're experiencing the success. And I know that doesn't imply that the hard work's over. I know you know that. It's every day you wake up and the risk is still there. It didn't go away, but you're in it, and I think it's cool. And I appreciate you taking valuable time and spending some time and sharing some of that story for others to hear it. I think it's important others hear it. So with that, I would tell you, is there anything else you want to share or say? I don't want to take your whole day here. I mean, I kind of try to be aware of your time. So
I appreciate you having me on. I think just others listening, I mean, if they are even thinking about it or it crosses their mind, but just take every moment, appreciate every opportunity that you have, because you never know who you're going to meet, where that person you might run into later, or it could come in. They could come in very handy for you later in the future. I mean, there's so many of, even looking at it now, just a lot of the clients we have are people I worked with, or they were my boss, or, I found out as I was going to go do this, one of my old bosses played basketball in college with the CEO of our franchisor. And so there's so many things and people you meet throughout your career that, no matter what you do, leave on good terms, do your best, and it'll pay off for you down the road. So
well said. Yeah, I can relate. People that I've come across long time ago. Well, I would say most of anything that I've been able to do or accomplish is because of others and support. And then sometimes somebody I met 20 years ago, interacted with, all of a sudden you run into them and they're back in your life. And that is so true. You don't know. You never know.
never know.
Yeah.
It's wild. And just as you get older, you really appreciate that. And I mean, one of our biggest client we have now is a kid that I met at KU, and we were buddies, and he happens to work there, and he doesn't buy any of this stuff, but he introduced us to all the people that do. And you just never know where things are going to lead down the road. So it's been pretty cool. So.
That's awesome. Well, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's been good. You're doing a good job of it.
Yeah, I appreciate the support and being part of the build. This was good. I wish you all the best, and I hope let's have coffee again at Uplift or some other place.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Thank you. What part of your story might be shaping who you're becoming, even if you haven't fully named it yet? This is the Fort Builders. Thanks for being part of the build.